I think everyone is actually trying to figure out how AI can help them in their business. I think a lot of people talk about it. Like you could look at the simplest form as like AI can help produce call scripts and email scripts for agents. And that could shorten maybe this conversation time, right? Because that is one of the biggest things in residential real estate that is a pain point is an agent does generate leads or has these contact database, but the amount of conversations they're having, right, that's the challenge, is how do you take a lead and turn it into a conversation? Can AI help that?
Welcome to Plus Partners, where we dig into the stories behind the successes. I am Kevin, founder of Burke Plus. We help businesses and companies in the tech and real estate space really develop their revenue and their businesses by leveraging the latest AI tools and strategic creativity to help them grow. We have a awesome guest today, but if you have any more questions about Burke Plus, drop a note in the comments. Jack Markham is here. Thanks for stepping on. Really appreciate having you. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, what company you're here, kind of repping and talking about, and your journey to get there and through the real estate industry. But we'll start with little.
Yeah, we'll start and then build our way through that. So I've been in the real estate space now almost 20 years, so not to date myself, but I have been around a while in this space. Majority of my time has been on the tech side, really facilitating real estate tech platform or tools, and the audience primarily being agents, brokers, teams, so residential tools, right? I do have a little bit of experience into the broker world. I did work for Better Homes and Gardens underneath Sherry Chris for several years and kind of oversee some strategic growth there. But currently I'm at Inside Real Estate. So Inside Real Estate, largest residential tech player in the industry. We have 7 of the largest 10 brands as clients. We have about 500, almost 500,000 users on the platform, or have the platform at their fingertips. So it gives us a big reach in the industry. But really the takeaways from that, and really what's most fascinating about like the role and working here, is because we have such a large reach, imagine the amount of consumers. So we have about 22 million consumers that are really in the Inside Real Estate database that are owned by the agents, right? When you have 500,000 users and you have all this contact database, that gives us access to about 22 million consumers. What's good about that is really understanding, I feel like we are really dialed into what the consumer, as they transform into their home journey or selling journey, we really are on the pulse of that and really can see things before other people do, because we have so many users and we have access to that. On the other side, having 500,000 agents, teams, or brokers using our tools, I feel like we really know that audience very well as well, right? I know what success looks like for an agent or team or a broker. I know what the top 20% are doing because I can see it. And I know why the most reasons why agents fail in the business, right? Because I see that as well. And so it does give us a pretty good perspective on the industry in whole. And that's why you see a lot of us, speaking at events or doing a lot of thought leadership in the industry, because we have, I guess so much data at our fingertips, that, being able to share that and bring back to the industry, that's something that we enjoy, kind of being the thought leader in our space.
Yeah, being on the tech side of things, the data is the key, right? I mean, figuring out how to unlock that and kind of create actionable items or actionable insights is really where it's at. Are you guys, it's the buzzword of the day, but are you leveraging and sort of developing new AI tools to kind of mine through that and create scenarios for you that facilitate shortening delivery times and sort of operational times as well? Or is that something that's sort of new on your horizon and you're looking to?
Yeah, I think over the last, I think over the last 5 years, we've been really focused, quite honestly, on partnerships and acquisitions. If you look at our track record in the last 5 years, I would say we have been very, very active on the mergers and acquisitions. Like We've made a lot of different purchases over the last 5 years. One of the biggest ones in the space was, acquiring Boomtown and their great business and their clients and the employees there and the structure and kind of that service level that they brought. And so that was a big acquisition for us. But we've also made some key acquisitions when it comes to technology, and obviously AI is talked about a lot in our space as well as everywhere else. I think everyone is actually trying to figure out how AI can help them in their business. I think a lot of people talk about it. I don't, like you could look at the simplest form as like AI can help produce call scripts and email scripts for agents. And that could shorten maybe this conversation time, right? Because that is one of the one of the biggest things in residential real estate that is a pain point is an agent does generate leads or has these contact database, but the amount of conversations they're having, right, that's the challenge, is how do you take a lead and turn it into a conversation? Can AI help that? I do think that. I do think that can help a little bit. I think what's more fascinating on the AI side is how consumers are searching with it and putting it in front of consumers. And, does that make, you think about that consumer, and the normal consumer becomes a lead to 10 times. And so if you're an agent or a team or a broker, what you've got to focus on is how do you keep them from going to your competitors? And some of your competitors are these portals like Zillow and Homes.com and Redfin, and their consumers are going there. And so if you're an agent, how do you compete with that? And I do think leveraging AI to have a better search experience, to have a better sticky experience, that when someone does come to your site, how do you get them to come back? That to me is a big part of where AI can help, right? Is making a better search experience for the consumer. Like I think traditionally if you go to any website or portal in this space, you can really use the filter, right? You can filter things out. Like I only want to look at properties with pool, and that is the traditional way we've thought about things. What we started to throw around is, what if we got rid of the filters and AI was the filter, and you type in what you want? That is the filter. And I think that's the new way, like from a consumer standpoint, that's the new way where you're seeing more stickiness on the consumer side using AI. So yeah, can AI help with processes and cutting down some things and definitely like getting more conversations? I do. I think in order to get all of that though, you really got to capture the consumer first. Because if you can't capture the consumer, it doesn't matter how long your process is. It doesn't matter. Because if you're not getting conversations and they're going to the competitor, at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter, right? And so I think that to me, AI is such a good front end tool to help you drive more of those conversations, to help build your business a little bit better. And that's kind of how I think about leveraging it, at least in the front fold.
Yeah, I think we're hearing. So I've been talking to folks in all different aspects of the real estate space, right? So from operational stuff to energy management to financing. It's been a great overview, but the common thread on the AI discussion is it is a tool. It hasn't, everybody's like, oh, it's going to take over everything. Well, yes, it's going to take over a lot of the tasks that are, taking up a lot of time, but you're still going to need a person on the front end to manage it properly, like to prompt it the right way to, um, you know, understand how to build an agent that focuses on delivering the results that are going to help you with your part of the business that you're kind of working on that you want it to help you with. So I think you're right. Like if you're pointing it at where the pain point is first, which is getting people into the pipeline and communicating with them, that's a huge win. And then probably once an agent is communicating with a potential client, maybe there's a way to leverage the data set that you guys have to position the way that they build their conversation and build the relationship with that client. I think it's coming. I don't know that it's here yet, but it's fun to think about how to use the data in different ways. Um, so you talked about acquisitions and stuff. You've definitely been active. It's almost seems like inside real estate has gone from maybe offering products to maybe offering more of an ecosystem and a platform. Is that something that you guys have been focused on? Because it's sort of what it looks like from the outside right now.
Yeah, no, it's a that's a good recognition of kind of what we've been doing, right? Because I think, for years in this space, I think we've heard terms like, one system and, you know, what is this one point of login that you use to run your own business? But I don't think we've ever gotten to a point in this space where we've seen that, right? The truth is that there's a lot of different tools out there. And if you look at the average agent, team, or broker today, they probably have 15 different logins, at least on a bare minimum, running their business. And so we took a stab at that, saying there's still room for that. And we're not saying like what we're building blocks out all of that. But essentially what we're doing is building an ecosystem. So where if you're an agent, you come in and you have these tools, you're not trying to import data in. That's where we lose productivity. It's where we lose efficiency, right? Anytime you're importing data into something, you're not going to be as efficient, right? You're not going to be as productive. And so what we've said is like, let's build an ecosystem where things are integrated in and they talk. Now that could be third-party partners. It's not just all of our tools, although, we have spent a lot of time on acquisition to build that out, but also we're still pretty active on third-party partnerships because we do think like we're not going to be able to build or buy everything. I think there are some good partners that have great product and great value prop to not only the agents, but the consumers. And we partner with them and have them be a part of this ecosystem so that really at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is go to the client and really trying to make a better agent, right? And at the end of the day, like that's really what it's about is can the users on our platform and our clients that we serve, can we make them more productive? Because that's how we win. If we just give a bunch of tools and people are buying tools and they're not getting the productivity, then really what are we doing in the space, right? And so we took a long look at that and said, okay, let's break down what are the biggest pain points in this industry. And the biggest pain points are things don't talk. I might have a website here and a CRM here and a back office that is transaction management over here. And wow, I'm recruiting over here, but nothing is talking. And so everything's kind of duct taped together and it's kind of like you're importing data here and here and here. That's where we lose it. But that's where we lose this efficiency or productivity. And that's why we see like maybe some brokers over the last, let's say 7 years, maybe they've been losing market share. And some of that is it's not because they haven't been providing a good service in their market space. It's like they're losing efficiency, and so they lose out, right? There's only so much they can do because I'm looking at all these different areas. So if we can combine that into an ecosystem, does that make our client more efficient? Does that make our client more efficient at recruiting, lead generation, transaction management? Can you make that process a little bit more simpler for the client, right? For the consumer? Does that get you more business? Those are things that like we've been tackling over the last 5 years, whereas you see a lot of acquisitions, and a big part of like the Boomtown acquisition. The latest acquisition we did was List Assist, which is really think about AI search, like I talked about, plugging that into our ecosystem to constantly think about how are we improving for our clients that is their client, which is the consumer, right? And so I think we've done a good job at connecting those pieces. Now, if I'm generating a lead here and it's all the way connected to my transaction management system, great. That's one journey that I don't have many different logins. I'm not importing anything in. But I think the best part about this and really where we're going, Kevin, in the future is I think there's so much opportunity for agents to get repeat business that they're not lacking onto today, right? Like if you look at any data put out by any of these consumer trends, 93% of consumers say they would use their agent again, but only 15% do, roughly. Well, think about that. Like that's
it's a massive step. Yeah.
Like in the corporate world, we know what's the best acquisition? Client, right? Instead of going hunting for new business all the time, if you had a good account management team and you work that book of business, you're going to that is where the strongest revenue is. And so kind of bringing that to the industry and bringing that to our clients, I think that's really the true benefit of having a great ecosystem, because now I'm so connected to this ecosystem that the client just gets recycled back in the same ecosystem and the conversation doesn't have to stop, right? Once the transaction happened, today the conversation stopped. It doesn't have to though. It shouldn't. And I think that's really like bridging that gap on that 15% is how do we help our clients get more of that?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, yeah, from a business perspective, roll that 80/20 rule right in there, right? There's how much time you're going to spend getting the most value out of the clients and where are they, right? So
Right.
if you're spending 80% of the time trying to get a 20% return, that's not quite right. Let's switch
Right.
that.
And that's what we see, right? That's what we see in the industry. There's a lot of effort and attention on new lead generation, which is great. I do think like you constantly have to be growing your database. But if you took 20% of that effort and applied it over on like actually running a book of business with your previous clients,
Right.
like think about the referral, like think about that referral process now, and then that repeat business. That's how you're scaling the business, right? Now, if you can plug AI into that too, like think about what that could scale like, and really trying to like imagine having your own account managers, but maybe AI is helping you do some of that a little bit. I do think that you get to more predictable business, more predictable income in this industry, which is, one of the biggest roadblocks for agents is, well, it's not, unpredictable income, unpredictable income. Well, there's a way to solve that, right? And if you solved it on the back end and had this book of business that you constantly worked and drove referrals and drove repeat business, you can get to a place where it's a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, for sure. Um, that makes such silly logical sense. I think you're onto something. Um, eh, I know you've talked in the past about, and probably frequently about, that 212 degrees. I think you're hitting on, like, you're using your tools to get from 211 to 212 just by plugging them in. I think that's great. I mean, I'm privy to that because I've watched you talk about it, but tell these guys about that a little bit.
Yeah, 212. So it's a book. It's funny. I have a book up here, and I have one on my desk somewhere laying around that it was a gift to me probably 15 years ago from one of my clients who was an agent. And it's a short read, but the concept is, right, 212 degrees water boils. At 211 degrees it's hot. It does not boil. Only when it gets to 212 degrees does it actually boil. And then boiling water creates steam. Steam can power an engine like a locomotive, right? And so it's like what the difference of that extra degree between 211 and 212 is pretty powerful. Like you're talking about powering an engine, which is, versus just being hot. And so I really latched onto this concept. I think every company and every team I've kind of been a part of and revamped in a way, I have brought that concept and it's done very well. I do speak about that a lot in the industry when coaching or going on stage somewhere, because I think the concept in our industry, in the real estate industry, is it's still powerful. And I think it breaks down to different things, right? So I always preach on, are you able to give 212% of leadership, right? Leadership doesn't mean you're managing a group of people, but you are leading a consumer through a journey, right? Whether it's a buyer or seller. Can you bring 212% of leadership to that? Do you have 212% of focus, right? Because I think that's another big one that I think agents tend to, in this business, get distracted by shiny objects. And so they'll dabble something here and they'll quit and move over and dabble something over here. Like having that 212 of focus is, can I focus because I know that there's core fundamentals to do in this industry that work, and can I be disciplined enough to do that, right? 212 degrees of kindness is another one. I know there's a lot of agents that are super passionate about giving back to their community. One, it drives their brand, but two, they're passionate about that. And I just think there's different aspects that 212 brings into the business that I think if you wrap your head around that concept, it is kind of like, how do I get 1% better every month? And if you get 1% better every month, then at the end of the day, it calculates to you're actually vastly improving your business over a 12-month period. And so it's kind of the same concept is what is that extra degree, right? And so what I've done in the past is I've kind of walked people through like almost like a business plan. Here's what's working, here's what's not working. What are the areas that I can dive into 212 degrees? Where am I going to put that extra degree? And maybe it's into lead generation, maybe it's into lead follow-up, and maybe it's into operational practices, but where's that extra degree and where does it need to focus? There are some things that I'm probably already doing well right now. Great, let's do those. But where am I going to put that extra degree? And I think it's such a powerful statement. And it becomes quite popular. I think people rally behind it because it's an easy concept to get, right? And it's real.
Yeah.
Like it's not a made up thing. Like a 211 degree it's hot at 212 it boils, right? Like it's science. And so I do think like if you can think about things that way and how to improve your business in slow increments instead of big, huge swipe, right? I think that if you can combine that and compound that 1% over time, I think that's how you change and impact your business, right? So if you're an agent or a broker listening to this right now, I think what the audience needs to take away a little bit is there are probably several things that your business is here today, but you really want it to be here. So you map out what that looks like, and then how do you get 1% better? And over time, right, it's hard to get there overnight. I think that's the biggest takeaway. It's hard to get there overnight, right? And I think that sometimes we're impatient and we want it, and those are expectations, but that's not reality, right? And so you do have to come with a solid business plan that shows that 1% compounding over a 12-month period and to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I think that's some of the logic that us old dogs can bring to the young kids, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It does take time. You have to commit for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm buying in. Inside real estate, you're at 211. What's your 212 goal? How are you getting up to that next spot where it boils again? Because after you boil it, you got to turn it off and let it cool down, and then it boil again.
Yeah.
You don't want another cup of tea or whatever.
Yeah. I really think it's completing this complete ecosystem of a real estate platform that really transforms the industry. And what I mean by that is like it brings a higher productivity to our client base than it's been kind of perceived in the past of technology. And we know like more and more agents are leaning into technology, but I think what more and more people are realizing is that technology isn't there to replace them. And I think that was like the early thought 10 years ago, right? Was, okay, well, if I have this, then maybe I can work less or I can, do more over here. And it's not really like that. Technology is not made to replace the real estate professional. It was made to scale. It's made to, really help them scale their business. So I think really going down this path of this ecosystem to me, so like I'll give you an example. For an agent, it is to increase their transactions in GCI, period, right? That is what we're really focused on. Are the tools that we're building in the ecosystem, can we help increase transactions in GCI for the regular, normal, everyday agent? For a brokerage, I think it's helping them bridge the gap into helping them become a more profitable business. And so I think there's a couple different things there. I think it's transaction management and being way more efficient in your operational transaction management than before, right? And scaling that, meaning that it's scaled to a level, but it's connected to the rest of your business. I think it's huge. I think recruiting, big. If you're not recruiting as a broker, then you're shrinking, right? Every single month you have to be growing your business and recruiting. And I think the only way to do that is to have tools that are connected to the rest of the business and to be able to use those tools as a value prop of why agents should join your organization. And I think for us, like that's kind of what we've built, right? We've built an ecosystem that includes a recruiting tool for our brokers because we know that is the lifeblood of your organization. The other lifeblood of the organization for a broker is, are you generating different and new revenue streams, right? So margins are very thin for a broker today. Like they've been shrinking over the last 5 years and they're extremely thin. So I think one of the ways that we really plug into that is helping brokers dive into more revenue streams. So, are you utilizing mortgage and title and insurance right as add-ons to help increase that margin, to help increase the likelihood of, we know that from a broker standpoint, you are so close to the transaction, you kind of manage that transaction. So introducing mortgage, title, and insurance is the very natural thing. And if you do it right, and have the right partner, then that those are new revenue streams that you can increase your margins on, right? And so I think that's kind of, as we look at this ecosystem, that was really the whole reason behind going down this ecosystem is we think that there's other opportunities for our broker clients to go and better their business at the end of the day, right? And some of that's by recruiting, some of that's by new revenue streams, and overall that's going to lead to higher productivity and more market share. And so I think for us, like, it's just doubling down on some of that, and continuing down that path of doubling down on those things that we know our clients need in order to grow their business.
What's how are you going about sort of building that network of brokers? Like, are you sticking regionally and kind of building from the center out, or are you just kind of shotgunning and trying to get as many brokers across the country on board? Like, what's that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I think, our model here has always been more of an enterprise approach, right? So, you think about like some of our biggest partners being like Remax is probably our biggest client, right? And so working at Remax on the corporate level, and EXP on the corporate level, Next Home, HSOA, like those are some of our big enterprise clients, and more of working with them at the corporate level and what are the tools. Like Remax knows what their agents need in order to be successful and what they want to roll out and what they want to provide. And so really that's where I think we've done a really good job. If you look at of our competitors in the space, I think we've really leaned into that way more and been a real true partner. And again, I think that's a big difference in this industry of being, yeah, we provide tech tools, or being an actual technology partner. Like being able to partner with Remax and put together packages and build things that they need to help better their organization. That has been something we've been able to do quite well. In versus coming in and saying, well, these are the tools that we have and we can provide these tools to you. I think it's useful, but it's really not what some of these bigger brands need. They need to have a tech partner, not just a tech provider. And I think that's really where we've tried to stand out a little bit. And then I think, down from there, it is going out to some of these independent brokerages, to be quite honest. How are they going to compete with some of the bigger brands? Like if you're an independent broker and you have, not saying you're a small brokerage, maybe you have 500 or 1,000 agents, but how are you competing with some of the larger brands out there? And I think that's where we can help partner with those independent brokers and those brokers and really help them put together a great value prop for their current clients or for their current agents, but also like help them again think about how to recruit. How do you stay relevant in a market that might be owned by a way bigger brand? How do you stay competitive? I think there is a space. If you're thinking about that and you're innovative and you think outside the box, I think there is a space for those independents to work quite well, right? And so I think that's kind of what we do. Obviously, we have a lot of resources to go do that, right? We're at a lot of events, and we do kind of wear the hat of being a thought leader in the industry and kind of challenging the status quo a little bit when it comes to tech and tech tools. Right? Like I said, I think that for years in this industry, technology companies are really only focused on the front part of the business. There hasn't really been a lot of innovation in the last 10 years on back office tools, transaction type tools, or even like book of business account management type tools for the industry, right? Think about the last 10 years. It's all been about websites and lead generation and marketing tools. I think, not saying we stepped away from that. We still have that. I think best in class, in that realm. But what we really dove into the last several years is like, look, we're gonna build better tools on the back end, right? We think that I don't think there's been a lot of innovation on the back end in this industry, and I think it's, we kind of took it upon our shoulders to go drive that area. Like I think there's a lot of more innovation that we can do on the back office tools, recruiting, transaction management, things like that we can vastly improve in this industry. And then I also think providing enough tools to agents that they can manage their book of business, like I said, and how do you take that 15% number and increase that, because that's where the dollars are. That's how you continue, growing your market share year over year. So I think that's where we've really leaned into that. And that's where you'll probably continue to see innovation, or at least us in the news, so to speak. That's where you'll see it.
Awesome. It's a bit of a practice what you're preaching kind of mentality, right? You realize once you get these relationships with the brokers that you've got to be able to service them and come up with a way to make yourself valuable over time, not just for that one purchase and one SaaS license for 12 months.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's
I
not
love it.
about, yeah, and it's not about, like, again, I think 10 years ago, this space was a little different. And I think it was only focused on if with your broker clients is, hey, can we help you with some tools to help you generate leads and things like that, right? Like now it's more of like, no, we're going to be your partner and we're going to help you grow your revenue stream. But that is a different conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus 10 years ago. And I think that's where you see us really leaning into is like, if we bring on a broker client, whether they have 50 agents or 1,000 agents, it's how do we help you and partner up with you to help you increase your margins and help you increase and run a better business. That could be recruiting, that can be back office, transaction management. It might be lead generation, and it might be, the marketing tools. I think it's all of those areas where, prior to that, it was more of just this front office idea and how do we do that? So I think that's what's kind of been fun is doing things that really have not been done in this space and trying to tackle that. It's not easy, right? It's not easy to kind of get out of what the norm is and kind of go tackle things and being on the innovative side, but it is fun, right? It is fun being a little bit on the innovative side there.
Yeah, I love it. This is great. I think you're unpacking inside real estate big time. It's good. It's exactly what I think everybody's looking for. Um, all right, parting words of wisdom. What do you have for us?
Wisdom. Wow.
Just to keep it, a little easy question to toss out there.
Yeah.
Softball.
Yeah. Parting words of wisdom. I think that, I think we're coming off in this space, at least in residential, we're coming off 2024 being one of the worst years in the last 30 years transaction wise. I think that a lot of real estate professionals, agents, brokers are a little bit shy of what the future holds. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think, look, transactions aren't going to go away, no matter what the rates do, politically, all that stuff, right? Life events happen, transactions will happen. I think it is about understanding that I don't think it's going to get much worse than we saw in 2024, right? I think it only goes up from there, and it might not go up a lot, but I think it upticks, over the next several years, and we kind of see this uptick back. I think there's opportunities to take advantage of that, and trying to determine how you're going to do that, I think is super important. And I think you can't just live in this box of, well, this is what I've always done, and the transactions will get better, so therefore I'll do more. I think you got to get outside the box and say, look, like that 1%, what is the 1%? How am I going to do that? How am I going to increase my market share? And what am I going to put my effort into to do that? And it might be things that you haven't done before. And I think that's an uncomfortable thing, but I think that's what's really going to separate people over the next 12 to 24 months. And that might be really partnering with a company like Inside Real Estate or adopting tools that you haven't adopted before. I think that's all part of it, though, because I think in order to continue to grow in this market that we continue to be in, I think you've got to stand out. I'll use the words of my former boss, Sherry Chris. You've really got to surprise and delight more than ever, right? And I don't think agents really have had to focus on that. I think today you really have to surprise and delight. It is a two-part strategy. How are you going to surprise and delight every single consumer? And if you're a broker, every single agent too, right? Because they're all potential clients that you're recruiting. How are you going to surprise and delight people moving forward?
I love it. We're ending with optimism.
Yeah, that's right.
Well done. This was great. I appreciate your time. Jack Markham, Inside Real Estate, another episode of Plus Partners. Thanks very much. Catch you next time.